Welcome back to Weekend Sunrise. Now, last week we showed you an ad that you had to see to believe if indeed you could see it through the plumes of smoke in your lounge room. The New South Wales government's latest anti-drug campaign is centred around the stoner sloth, which is allegedly representative of a teenager who's just smoked marijuana.
Could you pass the salt, please, darling? Chasing the salt.
I can't get enough of this. The ad has been widely ridiculed, both in Australia and abroad. Even Premier Mike Baird took to Twitter to compare the sloth to Chewbacca from Star Wars. So, when have other government advertising campaigns completely missed the mark? Joining us to discuss it, advertising gurus Jane Caro and Dan Gregory. Good morning to you both.
Morning.
Firstly, Dan, do you think the, aside from the production of now Sloth T-shirts, do you think the Sloth campaign made any difference whatsoever?
I was like Mike Baird. I originally thought it was a Star Wars trailer. You know, I was expecting Harrison Ford to walk in next to Chewbacca and say, "Chewie, we're back." But
he appears a bit stoned sometimes too, Harrison Ford, so maybe...
I think that's Chewie.
No.
He's actually saying Tim Tam.
But look, there's two kinds of impact you look for in a campaign. A, you want awareness. I mean, that's critical. And I think they got that. It wasn't the kind of awareness that they wanted. But the second thing you want is some kind of perceptual or behavioural change. And I think that's where it missed the mark. I mean, it's an interesting underlying strategy, you know, this idea of peer shaming, which has worked in campaigns like, if you think about the RTA speeding, no one thinks big of you. You know, that was a peer shaming campaign. But I think this one missed the mark because it just showed a lack of understanding of what was driving the audience.
Yeah, I mean, the campaign like this, the campaign's one aspect of it, right? But you're supposed to drive people to the website so they can then check out the information. Do you think it works in that regard? Because everyone wants to see Stoner Sloth.
No, because they know what kind of information they're going to get. The trouble with this ad is that it's really parental. You know what I mean? It's, don't do it, look what will happen to you.
You'll turn into a really, really cute sloth.
Exactly, called Delilah, which I didn't get at all. But I think the whole point about parental kind of messaging in advertising is it almost always fails, because advertising's really at its best when it gives you permission to do things rather than says no, naughty.
Well, you know, say no to drugs didn't work. What do you think would work?
Look, the Pinky ad did work because it had a sense of humour about it, because it was really, there was a kind of wryness and cheekiness to it. This one...
But it tapped into something we already believed anyway.
Yeah,
it tapped into the language of the people they were trying to engage, which was critical, and I think that's where this one misses. You're right, it absolutely is parental, and what's the downside? Oh, you know, Mum asked for the salt, you hand her a salad. Well, maybe that's a health thing.
Yeah, well, the other downside is that you've got to listen to that mournful classical guitar every time you perform a basic function.
Exactly.
And
the only
what are some of the other ad campaigns you think missed the mark, Jane?
Well, I remember one where there was, every time we drank, we turned into galahs and shrieked and laughed very, very loudly, and it was kind of really, really...
That's why we drink, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, exactly.
This would have driven me to drink. I don't remember this ad. Heavens above.
They were just awful. And again, it was the peer-shaming tactic. But the hidden agenda was so obvious.
It wasn't a vomiting laugh. Wow. Gets that man that cuttlefish.
Oh dear. Dan, what do you think?
Look, the other campaign that Jane and I were talking about was the smoking campaign with the hook that came out. And I actually think that was... It's funny, in some ways I think it was a really powerful metaphor. But again, I don't think that the addiction or the fear of addiction was actually the trigger for people's changing behaviour. And I think that's what we're really talking about is when you miss the mark, when you fail to engage with the audience, you're really wasting your money.
Didn't they work out with the smoking that the chief driver of giving up was in fact how you looked and smelt rather than what it was doing to you long term?
One thing people in advertising really understand better than most is we fear humiliation more than we fear death. So if you tell us it's going to kill us, we don't care. If you tell us you're going to smell bad, you're going to look stupid, you know, whatever, that has much more effect.
But certainly that's what Stoner Sloth was going for, wasn't it? Was it?
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's too far. I remember in the 70s they were all telling us not to smoke dope, and of course it worked perfectly. But there was a film called Reefer Madness, which
yeah.
kind of exaggerated the results, and I think that's the problem with this.
Yeah.
It's an overreach in terms of what people who smoke marijuana actually know.
It's unbelievable.
It does. So they go, oh,
And look, it still doesn't look that bad. I mean, consider we've just come through a Christmas period where we've all been fighting with our families, you know, highly intoxicated.
Speak for yourself, Tan. Speak for yourself.
I am speaking for myself.
So you wanted to just stare mournfully into your salad for half an hour?
I mean,
while your parents
I
had
would
some
love
news.
to have the stoner sloth as a member of
And
my
we're
family.
all moving at that pace this time of year anyway. I'd like to hear more stories about Jade in the 70s, but we've run out of time.
Yeah.
just read my memoir.
There's a whole chapter devoted to the Doobie Brothers.